think, how do you foresee the future of product ownership? Do you see a big spike in the product ownership role in the future, or you think it's going to be even more responsible role, given the fact that we are going through, a lot of chaotic situation?
So at least in the area, I'm kind of Europe and a little bit maybe North America and so on. I see a huge shift towards product ownership, which I think is right. Because for me, if you would have the best Scrum Master, the best development team, but you would build the wrong product, you would still have the wrong product in a great quality. But I think kind of success starts with a product owner, a good one. And so I see a lot of shifting from companies introducing product owners, but often I sense they don't really know what it means to be a product owner. So, well, you're no product owner, and essentially they still kind of think and act like a project manager, or they don't have the mandate to make product specific decisions. So they kind of just being pushed around, and they try to get as much work done by the development team, like throughput essentially.
Yeah, I think we emphasize a lot on the PSPO as well.
Okay.
The role, right? So which is very good. And yeah, I think we had an interesting webinar with Dave West from Scrum.org. He also did mention about, a couple of points that you have been talking.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm just a little bit, we're going to talk about it, but pretty much everything is a product somehow, even, if you, I don't know, drink a glass of water. I mean, water is a product. It solves a problem. Now you're thirsty. So, and I think getting out of this project mindset is a huge important step for most companies. And they struggle because they have been doing this other thing for years, decades. People are still in this mindset.
Okay. That was a nice conversation. So we have 2 more minutes. We'll get started on time. We will give an opportunity for other participants to join us. We keep getting participants.
So let me ask you one more question. I'm trying to ask a little sometimes for feedback because of the number of people. It wouldn't work like in a verbal way, but to use the chat window so that they could type something in. Is this something you've done in the past? Do you think it works?
Yes, but we have disabled the chat window. Usually if it is a webinar, automatically Zoom comes with some functionality where it doesn't allow except the question and answer windows. But yeah, we can ask the participants to use the chat windows, the Q&A windows to post any questions or any feedback they have during the.
Okay.
Do you think that works, or you want to allow the participants?
Let's give it a shot. I mean, I'm just typing something in, so maybe you get. So now you should have a.
Yeah.
Maybe can you type something just to see if it works? Yep, works great.
Yeah. They can use this window to post any questions or any comments they have.
So probably would just ask and then ask people to just quickly type something in, and then everybody just to get a little bit of an idea.
Sure. Participants who are on the call, can you please try typing a few just a hi and hello responses on the chat window? Yes, we get.
Yeah, I got a couple of highs. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So let me start since we are on time. It's going to be a difficult job. All right. Welcome people who are on the call. So you are in the tryScrum webinar series number 9, hosted by tryScrum Studio. Me, Venkatesh Rajamani, along with a couple of crew members on the call. We are very happy to welcome you to the today's webcast, Product Owner Demystified by Ralph Chacum from Scrum.org Professional Scrum Trainer, and he's also a founder of Effective Agile.
Effective Agile, yes, correct.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about speaker a little more in the few slides. But before that, I wanted to talk about the logistics. I'm sure most of the people are repeated audience, so you may be knowing there is a chat window for you. You should be able to put your question and answer in the Q&A. In case you want to chat with the panelists during the course of webinar, please use the chat option. We just enabled the chat option for you guys. Of course, you will be muted throughout the webinar just to avoid some background noises. So the whole webinar is going to be of 1 hour time box. We will see how we can accommodate some of the questions within the time box. Probably the webinar will go about 45 minutes, Ralph. 45 minutes.
About that, yeah.
So the last few minutes we will spend and try to take some questions, and we will try to accommodate as much as we can. But in case we miss some of the questions, it's not intentional, it's just the time box constraint. This webinar is hosted by tryScrum.com, a professional Scrum, a professional training network member with Scrum.org. We are also a ICAGL member organization, Scrum Alliance, REPs, and also endorsed community meetups. So we run almost 3 community meetups: Scrum Master Studio, Product Owner Studio, and Agile Leadership Studio. This specific webinar is sponsored by Product Ownership Studio because we have the real product owner who is going to share some of the experiences. I'm going to the next. Of course, if you want to understand more about these studios, how these studios can help, please visit tryScrum.com. Yeah, so I wanted to spend a little bit of time about the speaker. I think he's my colleague, and we have been working with Scrum.org for almost 3 years now. He's one of the stewards of PSPO, Professional Scrum Product Ownership Curriculum. He takes care of making sure that the content is up to date and relevant to the industry. He's also a founder of Effective Agile and also a co-author of the Professional Scrum Product Ownership book, one of the best-selling books for product ownership. And one thing I wanted to talk about Ralph is, yes, he brings a lot of experience from the fields about the product ownership. And we are glad that we have you, Ralph. Thank you so much for accepting to talk in our studio. I would like to leave it to you now. I think.
Okay.
Yeah, over to you.
And I'm still sharing my screen. Do I have to let me just give it a try.
Yeah, please reshare.
Okay. Here we go. You should all see a OneNote screen right now. Because usually I use flip charts. I'm not really a PowerPoint person, so I'm kind of doing the same thing here now for this talk. Thanks for having me at tryScrum. I'm honored to give my ideas about product ownership and what you need to do to demystify to really understand what this is all about. And everything was mentioned about me already pretty much. So I became a PST trainer in 2010. I was one of the first in Europe. I'm currently living in Switzerland. I got around a little bit. I've been living and worked in the UK, in Germany, now in Switzerland. Before that, I was a couple of years in the US. So I got around and had a chance to experience, practice, and do Agile in different environments, different cultures, different domains, different industries. And it was a good learning journey for me. But let's dive into this talk. And this is my first question to you. I would ask you maybe to use the chat window. So why do you think is agility important? Why would a company just maybe come to you and just say, hey, you're an Agile coach, please help me. I want to become Agile. What do you think should the right answer be? Just type something in. If you have something, I need to reopen my chat window here quickly. Okay, I see empower teams. Yeah. Add more value in lesser time. Oh, one more. To quickly validate our assumptions to be able to respond to market needs. So I think that the last 2 ones are pretty neat. The first one, empowering teams. Yes, I think this is a means, but it's not the end. Because empower teams would just mean you have empowered teams, which is, yeah, it's better, but if you still build the wrong product. So also the Scrum growth mindset. I think this is all this idea about continuous improvement, getting better at what you're doing. So the way I would just for me is the term what I like to use is I call it business agility. So you want to make your business agile essentially. And this allows you basically to respond to market changes quicker. Now COVID-19 happened. There are some companies coped really well with it, others who are struggling. So why is the difference there? So essentially at the end of the day, it's all about enabling, empowering your business to quickly, maneuver the challenges we have around us. So now what I usually observe is that there's this project mindset around, and this is probably, I think, highly historical driven, because if you look at that, let's take this classical project management triangle where we have scope, schedule, and budget. Now, usually, right now, I'm always asking my people in the trainings, hey, who is you preparing your budget request for next year? And one of my hands coming up, so usually in June it starts, it's done by September. So essentially, by September, you tell someone in your company, this is what I will be doing, this is my scope, this is how long it will take, and therefore it will cost so much. And then you get your budget for doing that. But if you really think about that, scope is a commitment, and schedule is a forecast. These are different things. They're not similar, but we unify them through one budget, which is already like an oxymoron. Yeah. But building on top of that, now we have then the numbers, scope, schedule, budget, which we communicate to the outside. And then as a project manager, you get measured for process compliance. You're a good project manager if you deliver on time, on scope, and budget. Now, the problem which arises through that is that you get this mindset of saying, you know, if it's the wrong product, it's not my fault, because I was on scope, I was what asked, I did what was asked, I did it on time, and I kept the budget, so I didn't do anything wrong. Now, this is not really kind of good for your business, because you could still have those. Now, we want to turn this around. Now, if you think about it from, let me just change something here quickly. Here we go. Now, if you think about it in this regard, is that we observe something in the market. Let's say this is the market here. We have kind of like people out here. And by observing the market, we come up with an idea, which we then think, hey, there's an opportunity. There is an opportunity about something we could do to, we call it often like a customer satisfaction gap. Like there's a need we could fill with an additional service feature, product, or something like that. And then we try to productize it really, really quickly and then bring it essentially into the market. And by doing this, and this was one of the answers I got, to quickly validate assumptions. Because everything we do is a hypothesis. In the end, it's an assumption. We might be right, we might be wrong. So essentially, after closing this feedback loop, we get two kinds of feedbacks. Either we have happy customers, or we might have unhappy customers. But either way, it's learning. You know, if we have happy customers, I mean, this is great. It's like this home run. Yeah, we did something, it was successful. Well, if you would have this situation here, well, you did something and you learn it was wrong. So you need to change your assumptions. You need to kind of go back and do your homeworks. And this is kind of really why we think, I'm kind of unsure about that product mindset is much, much more important than a project mindset. Because a project mindset essentially has this linear flow where we kind of go through the phases. We plan everything, we analyze everything, we design everything. But now over here, it's kind of more this empirical approach where we come up with ideas and we close the feedback loop as quickly as possible. Now, if you look in a dictionary, empirical means driven or guided by experimentation and learning. So if we learn faster, if we can maybe run experiments faster, we have a more agile business. And that's kind of what will empower us to be more successful, make more revenue essentially in the end. But not enough the question comes up in my trainings, hey, Ralph, that's all great, sounds good, but what is a product? And essentially let me just ask you right now, just type in a quick sentence. What do you think, how would you define a product? Just go ahead and I'll see what you come up with. You can go to the chat window and just a customer pays for, I see here. Satisfies the needs that can be used by the end user. Customer needs, anything that solves a customer problem. I like this one as well. That's great. Okay. Solution to solve business problem and resolve their problem. So problem is popping up here again and again. And essentially the way we think about it in our book, Don and I, we just say a product has a producer, someone who builds this product. It has a consumer, someone or a customer who basically consumes that product and solves a problem. If you really think about that, we are surrounded by products. Everything around you is essentially a product. And you get up in the morning, your alarm clock is a product. The bed you get up is a product. The coffee you make is a product. All of these things. And this is kind of the mindset we want people to get into, because a product has a correlation to your customer for which you want to produce value in the end. But what I often see is the following. Now, you have a company and maybe they have a hierarchy which looks something like that. And let's say they do Scrum, or at least they claim. So then they would also have a product backlog and a product owner. So this green circle is the product owner here. Now let's say they want to do a bigger initiative. Oh, there is some syncing problem, looks like. Just trying to see if there's something. Anyway, that's not so great right now. If I draw another line, will this one pop up? No. Okay, so this one was synced. Let me go back here. I'm really sorry about that. And then I had this problem before and I was doing a couple of test runs before, but let me just maybe draw everything here again. Let me step out of this one here. Go back here, okay, and let me see. Let me try to do something else here right now. That's a little bit of a moonshot. I want to share my Okay, I think you should be seeing now a different screen, and that's now I'm sharing my iPad directly. So that should work. Let's try. So let me just draw this here again so you see at least what I'm seeing now. I thought about having one additional technical layer would help, but so let's say these are kind of the product backlogs and the product owners. Let's get back to where we are. And now I'd say a bigger initiative comes into the company, something larger. And what happens is that they break it down. While you do this, then you give it to them, then you give it to them, then you give it to them. They have nothing to do and they do also something. Now, what happens in that scenario, you get many, many handovers. So every time you hear about handovers, you should think about queuing theory, because queuing theory tells us a lot about delay, loss of information, loss of quality in that regard as well, because what we pass over usually is documents. And if you're a good writer, you bring 30% of your knowledge on paper. If you're a good reader, you get 80% back. It's a very lossy process. And queues also mean loss of time. Now, the other thing is that these guys here, they have nothing important to do for a long time, but they need to justify their existence. So they do non-important work. While these guys, they go even further. They probably invent work to just justify their existence. So it doesn't look so great. But this gets even harder, because now the next thing comes up. And let's say this is exactly the opposite here. And the next thing which I have to do comes up as well. Let's say something like that. And very quickly, we get a deadlock situation because we'll say, hey, why didn't you deliver? You promised me today I'll have it, but I haven't. I say, yeah, I would have, but if they didn't deliver, and the other one says, yeah, they didn't deliver. So everybody, this blaming game starts essentially. And then the answer is often, yeah, we tried Scrum, it doesn't work. And the problem, and then people go back, they looked at everything, they come back afterwards, just say, guys, we fixed it. We found the plan to solve this Gordian knot we have here. All of you have to follow that. No one must deviate. Now, if you really think about that, about business agility, about empowered teams and stuff like that, we actually go a whole step back again. Because we are now plan driven again. We fall back into this project mindset about timing, process compliance, adherence, and all of these things. And that's not really how it's supposed to work. What we need is the following. We should have something where we say, well, this is a product. And for this product, we have our product owner. And now for this product, what it could mean is that, let's say we have several development teams working on this product. Now, this is something beautiful because this product is now encapsulated. It stands on its own feet. So whenever this product essentially is done in a releasable state, we can just say, yeah, ship it. Why wait? Why delay value or learning? But it's not as simple, I'm afraid, because then you would have the other product here as well. And you would also have a product backlog. And then you would have the teams here again and the next product as well. Where you again would have a product owner and a product backlog and teams working for that product. Now, what you can see here is that, let me maybe zoom in a little bit, is that there's this overlap. And this doesn't mean that there is one team working for two products. No, we don't want that. That means two products share a common technology. It could be a database, a service, or something like that. Now, let's say the red team wants to make a change to this one. So I would expect that people from the red team go over and talk to people from the green team. Individuals and interactions over processes and tools. And I would just say, we would like to make some changes here. We would just want to make sure we don't break it for you. How do you think about that? Or how can we do that? And then at some point, the red team would just say, yeah, we have done it. We are good. We are still in the functional state. We are still done, if you think about that aspect of Scrum. And they would say, yeah, we are also. And maybe they aren't, but then they could talk to each other and figure out what's going on and maybe roll back and do it right. So that's not too complicated here. And the same would be here and here in these areas here. But now in the center, that's what I like to call the crown jewels. Everyone is depending on this one. If that thing breaks, that would be a major disaster for the company. So the question is basically, how can we make sure that there's nothing bad happening to this center component we have here? How can we make sure? So the simple answer, the most obvious answer is to, let's create a component team. So you would create a component team which would do nothing else than to maintain that component we have in the center here, and therefore they would also have a product backlog. So maybe I would go to this team and just tell them, hey, I would need a change. And they would maybe answer, hey, Ralph, not a problem. You have to wait 5 weeks. And my answer might be, yeah, but I need it now. Yeah, 5 weeks, I'm afraid. Maybe 4, but 5. It could actually turn out to be 6 because something is changing right now. So you see now queues happen again, and queues kind of, lots of delay and all of the loss of time and all of these aspects. So the question is, how can we get this fence down? And this is where good technology capabilities come into the pictures, like containers, test automation, and other things. Maybe you get even a sandbox where you as a team could develop the software, and you basically just go through a review process through a panel, which basically just gives you feedback. So they wouldn't have to do the work, you would do the work, but you would be guided. So the idea is to kind of, from the idea to get the change in there really, really quickly. But it's all about to be done, and still done in the releasable state, because this means basically value. And as you can see, the problem what we often see is the following. Now we break down a product in individual components. We give it to departments. We create this flow chart about all of these things. Because if you really think about that, this here is your value stream. Yeah. And in the end of the day, I always say, start off with the value stream for your products you have. and find out how you have to arrange yourself as a company. Don't break the problem into pieces and fit it into your company structure. The company structure is there to facilitate value, essentially. So what we want to tell you is essentially the following. You should not think in components. You should really think in products, and products often means more development teams, scaled Scrum. Maybe we talk about Nexus or Safe or something like that, or Scrum at Scale from Jeff Sutherland. So the answer is pretty much, we call it like scale your product. Not your Scrum. Just having more teams doesn't make it better. Find out what really are your products. And the way I think about that is like, usually your customer is not on the company's payroll. The person usually is outside the company. Now figure out what is the whole chain, guiding back, and find out who has involved in that. And maybe it takes some time to really learn that and identify what that means. And let me just share another picture here quickly. Let me just get rid of this one here. So the way I like to think about it is the following. Like, you know, if you're down here on the left-hand side, like here more in this area, let me just draw a circle. So this is kind of like where in the area of widgets components, and you would have many, many teams, interdependency management, queues, all of those problems. I wouldn't even know how to call that. Is that Scrum? Because you don't have a product at the end. You have just something like, which is, but again, what a product is depends really on the eye of the beholder. Now, if you go out and suddenly you have a product, you can then just say you go over through the diagonal, you would basically go this way here and can just now we need to have this Scrum team here, but maybe you go even further out, then you would have a large product where you might have then several teams. Let's say you have a lesser or a Nexus setup. And if we look at this diagram we have over here, this guy here, let me just dive a little bit deeper here. Let's say one product, one dev team, that's classical. Let me just move this over here a little bit. That's classical Scrum. There's no magic anymore. We know how this works, and you would have your product backlog here. Now, a large product, several development teams. I'm just confusing myself here because I think I have something wrong on this chart here. So one large product, several developments. No, here it is, sorry. This is, let's say, where we would have a Nexus setup, and in this regard, you would have a larger backlog because you would feed, now here you would have one development team, and here you would have several development teams being fed out of this product backlog to build for this one sprinting product at the end. Now, if you have several products and several development teams, that's where portfolio comes into the picture. And you might have a portfolio backlog in your company. Now at the very top, one development team, several products, that's not a good situation. That's when I usually like to paint this guy here. Yeah, because like this is like no focus. People do a little bit everywhere. They're just jumping around all the time. They can't focus, which is actually one of the values in Scrum. And the consequences, if you really think about that, it means, you know, this is over here because we have all the components we need to manage. Now, Scrum would be living here and Nexus would be living here. And basically all of this here is fed by your portfolio. You would then basically say, okay, all of the elements we bring in here, they essentially come out of our portfolio, and then we have to break it down. Do we have to have a bigger setup of Scrum, or is it just one team? How can we do that? So kind of this is also the idea behind these things here. Let me scroll over a little bit. Let me zoom out. I just need to reorient myself here. Good. So now that's an important element here. I call it the onion because it's layers of the layers. And usually what we observe is that every company has a company vision. They just say, we want to become this company in 5 years, to be like that. Based on that, they can build a business strategy. Then down here, we have our daily plan in the form of the daily Scrum. We would have our sprint plan and our release plan. So the way I think about that, the head knows where it wants to go. The feet would know how to get there. But the in between is this disconnect. And that's what Don and I, we call in our book, the product management vacuum. And if you maybe remember from physics class, a vacuum has this strong need to fill itself. And if you're not really careful, it fills itself with milestones, charters, chapters, reports, and things like that. And all of these things, they are a project mindset because you just show project compliance. We are on time with our design. Is the design right? You don't know, but you created so many hundred pages. And this is what we need to fill. And this is what we see as product ownership. So as a product owner, you should be orienting kind of like in this area here. Let me just undo this one here. So this is what we see as product ownership. And now the idea is, and you see this green line we have up here, this one. As a product owner, you need to be high enough to understand or have a chance to at least be explained why we do something. Why? Because if you haven't understood the why, you just get requirements and you're basically back in the project mindset. But if you understand the why, you as a product owner, you could think about, okay, I get it. They do it for this reason, that reason. This is very important. And based on that, you can come up with a product vision. And once you have that vision, you come up with a strategy. Wow, we need to achieve this, so we could do something like that. Maybe you talk to people, but at the end of the day, you come up with a product strategy. And then you give it into the development team. And you can see kind of that this line here goes down basically into the sprint because you are there, you know, through the product backlog refinement beforehand, but also in the sprint planning, maybe even throughout the sprint. So this is kind of how you connect the gap, how you bring the company vision, business strategy into the people doing the work. So you kind of bring it neatly together. And there's this word amalgamation. Maybe some of you know this from teeth filling. Basically, it means you bring two materials together, but there's no interface. It just flows into each other. And this is what we want to have. And this is what product ownership is all about. And essentially, your responsibility as a product owner is to fill the vacuum in a meaningful way. So if you really think about this, we can stay here, up here in this area. This is all about value. This is all about vision. Where do we want to go? Then here in this area, we focus on value. On down here, when we do it, and we can close the feedback loop, we have the validation. And this is also what we call the 3 V's: vision, value, validations. Kind of that's what we want to have in regards to kind of filling the product management vacuum. Now, often I hear that someone tells me, hey, Ralph, I'm a product owner. I think, great, let's talk. I know a little bit about that. And they tell me, you know what, I got requirements and I'm typing them now as tickets into Jira. So they would be down here. And, but what this means is these are actually nothing else but what we call a scribe, somebody really kind of busy typing quickly a lot. Then the next step is I go to the customers, I ask what they want, I write it down, I go with that to the dev team and tell them, hey, a customer wants that. I talk to them and they would say, ask me questions. And then I would come back and just say, oh, that's a good question. I don't know the answer, but I'll find it out. So you would go forward, backward, forward, backward. You are a proxy. Now here, there's an interesting or important line, because now if you go to the right-hand side of this red dashed line, you are what we consider to be a business representative. And what do we mean with that? So basically, you know the domain the product is being used in. If I do a medical product, I want my product owners to be a nurse, maybe even a doctor, because they know what's important. They know what never should be done, what always should be done, all of those insights. I was once working at a bank for a new loan credit platform, a great product owner. And sometimes he wanted to shift stuff around because he thought this is more valuable than the other thing. But he couldn't do that because he was not in charge of the budget. So basically, which can, oops, sorry about that, makes him the sponsor. So we also think a product owner should be maybe not unlimited budget, but getting a kind of an amount and just maximize the value with that, do the best you could do. But then there's even a step further, which we call like this entrepreneur. And we want basically entrepreneurial mindset in the product owner. Some product owners tell me, I work for a large corporation, I can't be an entrepreneur. And I agree, this person can't be an entrepreneur, but they can still have an entrepreneurial mindset. They can go out to people, talk what's going on, figure out what's really going on, all of these things. And if you think about that, if you scale Scrum, if you work with several development teams as a product owner, you delegate much of the work into the dev team, which is hopefully containing with a business analyst, developers, testers, maybe UX people and something like that. And you give them the insight you have gathered and they come up with ideas and then they would validate back with you. But if you really look at this kind of, it also means on the left-hand side, you're not even justifying your name as a product owner because you're being told what you do, you receive. Now on the right-hand side of this line, things change because now you can really initiate and drive the product. And it's kind of where we want to become a product owner. And it's a little bit covered now, but I am and act as a. So what we want to tell people is identify where you are right now as a product owner. And I see most people somewhere here in this area say, okay, right now you're a proxy product owner. Fair enough. That's not wrong. I mean, but what would it take on your side to move over here? Yeah. How would you have to act? Because you don't get promoted to the next level by just saying, here you are, good luck. You get promoted because you show these superiors that you're capable of doing the work, the level above. The same thing here. You would show that you can work more to the right-hand side, and then you would become a business representative and then a sponsor. And at some point you have this entrepreneurial mindset. And the interesting thing is that if you look at this, the further up, the more you move to the left, let me just use a different color. So the more you move here to the left, the higher you essentially move up here. There's a correlation in that regard. So vision is very important because I always say, if I don't have a clear vision, I always tell people, just don't do it because you just stay busy, do something. Give me the vision. Why is what you're doing important? And I would like to do this exercise, but it takes some time and everything, so it wouldn't have fit into this time box here. But what I usually do is I do the following. I just give people these hands out, and give half of the room the left-hand side, draw this, like 10 blue flowers with 5 petals each, very specific. The right-hand side, they get the other one. So the right-hand side, they would get this thing here. And just say, this is the vision because this is something the person wants to remember where they spent their childhood and so on. And it's not really prescriptive about how many cows, how many flowers, which colors and so on, but they have a clear understanding why this is important. And in the training, what people happens is they come to me and ask me questions. Are you this person? I say, yes, I am. Okay, so do you want to have a chimney on the house? Do you want this or that? So they would come and talk to me to understand why this is something important. And even if you really look into this, we can just say here, your success will be measured by how closely you measure the specs. This is again, following the specification. If the specifications are wrong, you still do them. Now on the right-hand side, your success will be measured by happy your customer will be. Now this is a product mindset again, because you solve a problem for someone. If I get this drawing and it kind of will be living kind of just in my living room or in my dining room above the table that I can see it again and again and just feel good about it. Problem solved. And there's actually a couple of examples I have here from some training. So this is what I see often on the left-hand side. You see even they spread it out and then done, well done, because they check off everything we have here. Now on the left-hand side, you get drawings which look something like that. Really nice pictures. And I think this is the power, showing the power of having a good vision. And essentially kind of, you know, what often I see those boilerplate visions. It's just like, oh, we have to have a vision. Let's come up with a sentence. And they're really, I don't want to read them out right now because they're really horrible, and you can just do this afterwards. I tried to make this an export of this OneNote PDF available to you afterwards if this works. But this is what we often see. And these are not good visions because they don't engage people, they don't drive people. Now we want to think about value. And then the question is, what is actually value? And this again is one of those things which is interesting, because value is, again, is in the eye of the beholder. If there's something which is valuable for me, it might not be it for you. So this is why it's also really important to really understand your customers or your customer segments. If you have several groups of them, go out and try to empathize with them, understand what is their needs, what do they like, what do they hate, and so on. Observe maybe how they work. So it's in the eye of the beholder. That's the short answer. But in the end, again, it solves a problem. It has a user, producer, and so on. Now, if you think about it from this point of view, from a project mindset, you would plan everything here, then you would analyze everything, and then you would design everything, and then you would implement everything, and then you would test everything, and then at the end you would release everything. So this is our classical waterfall thinking here. And at the end you would have your product. But I'm afraid there is this question mark, because you don't know if this is the right product until then. This is why we then put in those milestones, security gates, whatever we call them. But if you think about this area, what we have here, somewhere here in this area, this is the product management vacuum, because this is where we blindly follow a process. And if you think about your value curve, it looks something like that. You may go here, 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 and if you're lucky, yeah, you go all the way up, you get all the value. But if you don't, you get stuck here. And if this happens again and again and again, at some point, game over. You're out of business because you run out of money for new ideas. Now in Scrum, you're not driven by activities. Because the funny thing is that up here, you would plan everything, even though you know that you know the least. You would create this great plan with the least information yet, because as you move along, you learn while you're doing the work, because you would learn from your mistakes and things like that. But you can't really leverage it anymore. Now, if you approach it from a Scrum point of view, we try to get to something like that. Because we are driven by value. We ask our customers, hey, there are so many things you want. Choose one. Which is the most important one? Okay, let's do this for you. Let's come back at the end of this sprint. Let's show it to you. Next question. What's the next most important one? Okay, this one here. Okay, can we do that? And so on. And this is then how you would get to this value curve. Now, the interesting thing is that the end and the starting point here are actually the same. And sometimes people tell me, yeah, but it's the same. But if you think about it, down here in this curve, in this area here, the red one here, this area, let me just use a pen quickly here. This is basically always below the gray line, and you try to catch up. Now, the one above the green one is always above the green line. And actually there's a point which is interesting, which is probably somewhere, I want to see that, maybe somewhere here. This is when the distance to the diagonal is the most. That actually means now on the right-hand side of this point we have here, a sprint is probably costing us more than the anticipated return on investment. Maybe we should ask ourselves the question, why are we still doing it? Yeah. Maybe if we are done, shouldn't we do a release? Okay, and learn and get value. Because if you think about that from another point of view, let me just change the color here quickly. Let's make it orange. Because if you work in a classical way, you pay, and I'm running out of space here, and you pay. And if you're lucky, you go up here again. And this area here, this is when you have positive cash flow. Now, if you do the same thing here, you still pay, it's not for free, but then you would make a first release. And if it was a successful product, you would have this. And at this point, you can start to work on the next product and get in this. And this also shows you back how this would change the way you actually work with your portfolio. You would have more shorter product focused releases instead of long running projects. And then the next one. Now, if you look at all those green triangles here, this is much more area you would actually cover. So from a cash flow perspective, absolutely the favorable approach. And there's a term which we am just kind of, if you do this well, you could get to a value curve, which looks a little bit like that. You do this first, but you don't go all the way. You just go here and then you make the next one and the next one. This is how you can really now magnify value. And some companies achieve that, and these companies really show a product mindset, and they are often an order of magnitude more productive than the other ones. So vision, value. Now we look about validation, and there's something we have come up with. I need to move to the right a little bit here, because all the activities we do in product management, because we think about the product owner to be a kind of a product manager, but working with a different mindset, more agile, more engaging, more looking for feedback. And essentially all those activities we have for product management, and let's say all these are all activities we need to do. We need to run them through, let me change the color here quickly again, back to gray, through our, what we call our release funnel. And here we would have the release. And then here on the right-hand side, if we are lucky, we have value. Maybe we don't, but then at least we can learn. And now the question is often like, how often can you do this? Can you do this once per year, or can you do this once per week? And we have come up something at Scrum.org, which we call EBM. And EBM stands for evidence-based management. Because so many decisions are being made every day. Why? How would we know it was a good question, a good decision? What would be the evidence giving us the confirmation? And this is often because we are too much circumstantial, not fact-driven. And we have in this area, we have four areas, business value areas. I'm just checking to watch the time right now. I think I have about 5 more minutes for my talk. So, but there's something we call unrealized value. Unrealized value. You can also kind of look it up at Scrum.org. So we would have this one here. Then here we have current value. Then ability to innovate. I hope you can see that. I just see the gray is a little bit light. And time to market. Now, if you look at what we have here, so current value is all about how are we considered right now? What is our standing in the market? How good is the quality of our products? How happy are our customers? How happy are our employees? How many features are being used? So there's lots of learning to be done, because every time I do a training and I say, who is a product owner? And hands go up, I just ask them kind of in this area in the training, just say, can you tell me which features are not used of your product? No, I don't. Say, wouldn't that be good information? Because this feature was conceived to be a good feature. This feature was thought about, designed, specified, implemented, tested, released, no value. Why did you do it? Did you actually learn something from this mistake? So kind of really find out, and we find out that usually kind of 20% of the features are often used, and actually around 40% not that often. I can say often and kind of more like not. So now if you think about this project management triangle, scope, schedule, budget, scope is a big level you can move without actually using any value if you identify which one of the features you don't really need. And hey, what helps you there? go and talk to your customers, figure out, close this feedback loop, bring them into a sprint review if possible. Now, unrealized value, what we have here on the left-hand side, that's kind of more looking into the future, saying, hey, we think this could be a product. We think now in the current situation, what's going on, that would be helpful. That would solve so many problems for so many people. And you would probably investigate into this product. And this idea would then become part of your portfolio, and you would take it, don't make it too big, don't make it a 5-year project out of the box, because you might be wrong. But just think about what could be the minimum viable product for us to learn. What could be the experiment for us to run? And this is when I like to think about, you can look it up afterwards, but it's like the, why do I have gray here? I thought I have black. Here we go. That's kind of like the 3 horizons. You have horizon 1, which is kind of your current value, but it will go down eventually. Then you also have horizon 3, which is more like this unrealized value, this idea, this could be a product. And then there's something which is called horizon 2, where you just, let me explain from a different point of view. Like horizon 3 is like, hey, do you think we can do that? I give you 20,000 euros or something, and just come back in 1 or 2 months and tell me yes or no. So those people would go out and they would try out to work, and they would come back with, no, it doesn't work. Well, we lost 20,000 euros, but not more, at least. Maybe they come back with yes. Now the next question would be, can we productize that? And that would be horizon 2. So I would give you more money, would maybe give you half a year just to go ahead and figure out how this whole thing works. And maybe after this time, we figure out, while we do that, we figure out, no, it's going to be too expensive, or there's not enough customers, or what we have learned, we would just scrap it again. Would have lost more, but not too much. And if the answer is yes, we can productize it in a meaningful way, we would move it into, it would become a product. And by becoming a product, it would move into horizon 1. But then you have to think about the next thing while you're in there, because you would deplete horizon 1 and you have to freshly create new value. This is something you can look at that. And as you can see, kind of what we have up here is kind of has a clear market focus. Now, this is all about this here, cash. But now if you look at the other ones down here, ability to innovate is really about how good can we innovate, how much. And what we also know is that, for example, 53% of most budgets for product development is used for support and maintenance. So, and there's some other things we do as well. So what we know is about 30% goes towards value. All the other things get lost along the way for other stuff. Now, how can you bring your support and maintenance effort down? Test automation, good technology, build pipelines and stuff like that. So if you have this, you need to spend less money on the things you shouldn't be doing that much. You will never bring maintenance and support down to 0. You don't even want to, because someone has to pick up the phone if someone is having a problem. But you want to bring it down to a reasonable level. And this maybe can bring you up your innovation rate by, I don't know, 10, 20%, which could be huge. Now, time to market, this is really about how long does it actually take to go through your value stream? Now, how long does it take? And what we observe is that, especially, when we had this, where was it? Where is it? Here, the skull. Now, if we're in this area here with the skull, that's when time to market takes really, really long, because we juggle all those components and dependencies, and stuff is frozen, and we can't do this because of they can't do this, and so on. Now, but if you have dedicated teams working in a Scrum or Nexus setup with a clear product focus, a clear product vision, you can be really, really fast in that regard. So you can really bring down your what I'm writing is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, but you can really kind of streamline your value streams. It's kind of meaning dedicated teams, stable team structures, and some other things around that. It also often something to do with technology. And therefore, what we have down here at the bottom is what we refer to. These are capabilities. Now, if you look at this, it makes it clear, in order to have a good market standing, good making money, you need to have the right capabilities as well. If you don't, you will not be able to kind of satisfy the market needs often enough. Maybe we had a lucky strike here and there, but overall there's not enough coming, new features. And you kind of, and if the competition comes up with a similar product and they know how to do that, they will basically push your site. So this is the idea about EBM, and you can go to scrum.org and maybe someone can type it into the link to the EBM guide, but this is kind of like a 7-page guide. It gives you also some ideas about what you could measure for unrealized value, what you could measure for current value, ability to innovate, and time to market. And let me just zoom out here now, and I'm already here at the minimum, it looks like. So with that, basically, I conclude my talk. I think I'm a little bit over my time box. I'm sorry about that. But now I would be open for questions.
Yeah, that was very insightful, Ralph. It was like reading almost half of the book and just closing the book abruptly. Very nice.
Okay, still buy it though. Yeah, okay.
So there are some open questions for you, Ralph. You can see those questions, or I can moderate, to help you.
I go to the Q&A panel right now. The thing is, kind of with all the screens, I was a little bit overwhelmed right now. Hi, Ralph. As a PO, how do you create a balance B/W between outward-facing responsibilities like visioning, stakeholders, market research, and inward-facing responsibilities like team discussions, attending Scrum events, and so on. So now, if you think about that, there's one point in the Agile Manifesto: customer collaboration over contract negotiation. And this is the way we think about product ownership, because if you read in the Scrum guide, there's written something like the product backlog can be changed anytime through the product owner or someone else. So I could say, this is my product backlog. I'm the product owner. You don't touch that thing. This is mine. You don't touch it. But I could also go over here and just say, you know what? You know the vision of the product. This is the product backlog. Please go ahead and work with it. So essentially what it means is that you don't do all the work anymore. You give it to your team. You make the team, which should not only be consisting of programmers, you should also have business analysts, maybe UX people, and something else what you need depending on what done means for you. But you would give them a problem and just say, hey, we have this problem. Could you guys figure out how we can do that and share it back with me? And this is where the refinement comes into the picture. And I would come, instead of I telling the team, they would come back to me and just say, hey, product owner, this is what we have found out. We have several options. Let's look into these. So I want to make my devs in the development team like feeling engaged about the product, become small product owners. And this is the beauty, like in English, between responsible and accountable. You can delegate responsibility as a product owner. That's not a problem at all, but you cannot, hang on, now I'm back here. You can delegate responsibility, but you will always stay accountable for the product. So I hope this question was answered. Let's look at the next one. Hi, Ralph. One needs to leave leadership support in order to love professional product owner and consider as a Bible for product owners. There's nothing thought about right now. There's nothing being typed up right now. So Don and I, we are thinking about maybe a second edition of our book at some point. But again, we haven't really, we talked about it the last time we met and so on. So it could be, but thank you so much for this feedback. This kind of really made it worthwhile to spend all those hours going through that. Thanks for the session. Is product-based approach a must across all streams in an organization? I like to think that way. And I would say probably not 100%, but probably close. So sometimes, you know, I sit down with other PhDs and we just kind of get a little bit philosophical and we just say, could you do everything as a product? And there are some things we think probably not. But on the other hand, I think everything which is valuable for you as a company, which basically brings you the money because you satisfy the need of a customer, these should be considered as a product. Should the product owner be aware of different frameworks like Less Safe Nexus for better product backlog management? I think so, that would be good, because usually I see it often, but it's not always the case. So I see about 50% even more like scaled Scrum where there's several development teams. So now looking at those less and nexus, I would say yes, because there's a clear focus on value of having a done product all the time. Now safe is a slightly different beast, and I don't want to talk about this here right now because this would explode the time box. But I think, yeah, something like less and Nexus, that would be great because they really have this focus about you are the product owner, you're accountable for that. Now engage with the right people and show value again and again and again so that you can close the feedback loop. Okay.
There is another,
yeah.
There is another question on the chat window. If you delegate all the responsibilities, will that not impact the team's ability to get the done increments in a sprint? So that's a view from Mark.
Okay. I think in this question I hear a little bit out, but all those programmers, they need to program. And this is output thinking, not outcome thinking. Because I could produce lots of output, but if it's the wrong output, if I have a high velocity and I drive in the wrong direction, I still will never get to my destination. So there's more this outcome focus. And I think if you think about a dev team a little bit less than just programmers, and this is a little bit of an issue. And the interesting thing is I see this term about using devs or developers less of a problem in non-software Scrum setups. They just say, well, this is a person developing the product. So they don't have a problem of having people from business analysis or business intelligence and so on in their development teams. But if you really have this, let's say you have maybe 4 programmers, 2 testers, 1 business analyst, maybe with someone else, they can do this work. And they can then also collaborate a lot in between, because within a sprint, they could ask, maybe a programmer goes to a tester, hey, I have done it this way. I'm not sure if this feels right. Could you just have an eye on that? And they would collaborate on that and maybe also bring that knowledge then back to the product owner. But they would really be taking on accountability. And it could mean that they do a little bit less work. On the other hand, they free up the product owner to do much more important work, right? And the less work they will do will be of higher value. So therefore, it pays off. If you are giving one single tip to the budget, to the, what is that word, budding product?
So if you had to give one single tip to the budding product owners or somebody who is getting into the product ownership role or newly minted product owners to be successful, what would that be?
I would start off with a vision. Really understand why you do that. And I think as a good product owner, you can even make a non-sexy product a good vision. Now, if it's maybe just a new release of an existing internal system or something, I can just, you know what, we have to make this because these people over there in that building and over here, they are struggling with the conversion right now all the time. So let's find out how we could help them. Shall we walk over and shall we to talk to them? And by doing this, everybody gets on the same page. And this is especially in a scaled environment important because what you need is shared alignment. If you don't have shared alignment, people will go off in different directions and they wonder, oh, this doesn't fit together, this doesn't work together. Shared alignment allows you that, and shared alignment is given through a vision. So I would basically start off with a good vision and think about value, what you could do first, and then again, don't forget validation. You know, trying to learn from you what your decisions, was it a good decision, yes or no? What should we do if our customers can't accept or absorb our releases fast enough as they have policies in place to absorb the increment? Often what I see is that, let's say you have different customers, maybe some customers are happy to absorb that more frequently, other ones aren't. So the ones who are more frequently, you can just deliver because you are done most of the time, or hopefully all the time, you can just give them a new version. And the other ones, you would give it to them once in a while. Just, you know what, just knock at my door when you are ready for a new release. And on the other hand, even if you have just this one customer is not really willing to get more frequent releases, you can still get them into the house and show them what you have to do. And just, this is the product right now. It's still on our premises, I'm afraid, but this is what we have right now. Anytime you're ready to get it, just let us know. So again, you could close the feedback loop more frequently. Now the customer using that product from you, they wouldn't generate value more frequently. So for them, the outcome wouldn't change that much. but for you it would, because your customer would be more happy, and hopefully they would come more frequently than to you. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Ralph. I know I don't want to disturb this flow, but unfortunately, in the spirit of time, we got to end this webinar. I would like to extend the gratitude from tryScrum, Ralph. Spending 1 hour of your time was very valuable. We look forward to hosting you in one of the other webinars, probably a version 2 of product ownership. Then we can take this conversation along. I wanted to thank all the candidates for your valuable time. I hope you enjoyed this webinar. The recordings would be available on YouTube. You can replay whenever you want it. I would like to just inform you, there are some upcoming webcasts available in the month of August. The next week is going to be with Peter Stevens talking about 3 secrets of agile leadership. Followed by, we also announced our September series. There are a whole bunch of speakers talking about different aspects of product ownership, agile coaching, and also a few on Scrum mastering. So do not miss any of those webinars. We look forward to seeing you. Once again, thank you, Ralph, for your time. And
thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the webcast. Maybe we look forward to seeing you. And also, I look forward to personally meeting you in one of the face-to-faces, perhaps in the future.
Hopefully, once we can fly again. Okay. Thank you, everyone. And thanks for all the great questions.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.